thing which provides us our requirement. A program is the thing which is used inside the project. Like we can use various languages like C, Java, Python, anything. Those are all program. And project is the entire setup that will provide us things to handle, like
Right.
dashboards, everything, web applications, etc.
Yes, right, is correct. So, what the program means, we are talking about program, you have to write a program to print a particular mathematical calculation or mathematical table or something. You have to perform some arithmetic operation. So, the problem statement will be there, and we are going to understand what the problem statement is trying to say, and accordingly, we will write a singleton program, a standalone. I mean, there is nothing to do with two different programs. There is nothing communication, no link between any two programs. So what we are doing, once we are going to work on a single program, that means something is asking for a particular, a very specific problem. And on that program, we are going to work. But once we are talking about a project, so it's going to complete the whole. The fundamental is same for both, but what the difference? That is criteria. If you're talking about a program, that means we are looking for a very small problem and we are trying to find out a solution for that particular. But once we are talking about a project, so a complete scenario, how it is going to work in front end, how it is going to work in back end, how the developer is going to work on that, at the same time, how the client is going to use it. So we have to understand everything from the front end to back end. And it's not a single program, it's a combination, or you can say integration of different technologies. Okay, so we have to generate one mathematical table and we have to create one simple program for a scientific calculator. Now, these are two different things, because here we are talking about program. That means we are talking about a very basic thing we are trying to cover. But once we are talking about a project, it's going to cover a complete scenario. Okay, so program and project, that is difference. And yes, one point is very good, like project is a set of programs. We have to design one form with the help of HTML, CSS. So that is one program. Now, once the user is going to fill the detail within that program and is going to pass to the server as a request, so that is another program. Once the request is there within the server is going to handle the request and it will send a response to the client. To handle the request is another program. To send a response to the client is another program. Right? So project is what? It's a complete, or you can say a good collection of different programs. So once we are talking about a program, it's for a specific problem. Once we are talking about project, it's a entire. I hope it is clear, right, for everyone. Please let me know.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's it. Okay, very nice. Thank you all for your response. And let me know if screen is visible, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Very interactive session. Thank you. Okay, so now we are aware the project is what? Is a collection of programs and programs from front end to back end. And how is going, what the flow will be there. So as I mentioned in this session, we will try to cover that part. Okay. So just consider a simple project, what the project is going to do. Okay, as a developer, two types of works we are doing as a front end developer, as a back end developer. Front end developer and back end. What the difference? Anyone?
The front end is the UI. What we are saying, that is the front end. Back end is the process. What the code is writing in the back end, no? The logic, that is the back end.
The code is also part of front end, right?
Yeah, ma'am. But the logic is there, no?
Making API.
Every time a request calling to API, that is the back end process.
Okay.
Ma'am, front end means the user can see it, but the
Yes, please continue.
ma'am, front end means the user can see the process what is going on the screen, but the back end is that the user can not see the how the flow is going on.
Hello,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yes,
Front
good
end is
point.
a yes, ma'am. Front end is a user experience of a application of, or we can say that website, and backend is a data storage and server side logic.
Okay, that's good. Nice. Yeah, thank you everyone for a response. Yeah, that's as main point is what front is what we are going to develop for the client point of view, and backend what we are going to develop for the server point of view. Client who is completely unaware what is happening behind the scene, and server he just don't care about the front end. Okay, if you're talking about a framework that is for the backend, or for example, it's a Spring Boot, it don't care. It doesn't care what is happening on the screen for the client. How the page is there, what different font size we are using, what different button color, button type we are using, nothing to do with that things. Whatever client will be able to view on the screen. So whatever user, a normal, I'm talking about an end user. Whatever the end user is able to view, that is front end, and they have to do nothing with the back. Right? This is not the header what is happening behind the scene. And whatever as a backend developer we are doing, we have to do nothing with the front end. We are not aware how the front end developer is going to design the particular form. We are responsible just to read the form data, whatever the front end is going to pass us, and we are responsible to feed it, to store it within the database, the storage you can say. And in same way, the front-end developer is completely unaware how the back-end developer is going to store the data within the database. What the developer will do with the data, the front-end developer is completely unaware with it. They are just too busy to design the page. They are just responsible to send the request successfully. They don't have to do with the response. The backend developer is responsible to read the request, to handle the request, and to send the response. The front-end developer is responsible to accept the response and to fill it within a designed page. Okay, so it is clear for everyone. Please reply.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's correct.
Yes, ma'am.
So that is front end and back end. If you are talking about full stack, now the one person army, only one person is responsible, or you can say that person should be aware with each and everything. Each and every means how the pace, how the form is going to look for the client, and how the data will be stored within the database. So from one end to another, the full stack developer will be responsible for this flow. Okay, so here we are going to talk about both the front end and the back end. So let's start with a simple pace so you will get better idea about. And as we are going to talk about Spring Boot framework, so within my explanation, I am use the example of Spring Boot framework. Okay. So here we are having one application, or you can consider it as a client. And one more thing, let me know, is it mandatory to have an API within, once we are talking about a form or a table where the data will be stored or a user is able to view the data, so it is mandatory to use the API?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
No other way to hold the data within the table? My
And
question
we
is
can
it
store the data
mandatory?
in the data.
Is there any possibility like without using API, still we will have some data to make it viewable on a screen for the user, or is it mandatory to use the API? My
Yes,
just
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
We
It is
without use a API store and local storage, the data stored in without API.
no. My question is what?
Ma'am,
This yes.
without making database, we can make API.
My question is, suppose
Just
this is my page, okay, and here within this page I have to print suppose employees details. Whatever number of employees are there within a company, I want to list out all the employees. Suppose 10 employees are there. Okay, I have to print 10 employees detail, basic details. So is this the only way to store within the database? or some other ways are there? Just focus on the question. Is it mandatory to
Ma'am,
hold them within the database?
Ma'am,
no,
it is
ma'am.
not mandatory,
No,
but
ma'am.
using an API is highly recommended in a full stack project, especially for the following separation of concerns and scalability. I
Okay,
might
that's
be
good.
possible.
So that is not mandatory. So that is
No,
good. But
no, ma'am.
okay, if it is
Ma'am,
not
just
mandatory, then
we
what the
have
different options are there to hold the data?
just hard coded the value of 10 employee in the in the repository section and all.
We can
Okay,
store
hard
the
code.
data in the local storage also.
Okay, that's good point. Hard coded means we are going to print it as it is 10 employees detail, right? But I'm talking about storage. If user is going to fill the form, so that time we have to store somewhere. So the second option is local storage. Okay, any
Yes.
other?
Ma'am, memory storage.
Local database. We can use local database like a Roam for Android and SQLite for a web application or small application.
Okay, good. Any other? Any different way? The database is not there. So how many different ways are there to hold the data?
H2, we can use H2 database.
Ma'am, we can store in array, ma'am.
Sorry, your voice is not clear.
H2
Ma'am, we
database.
can store the data in array.
Array. Okay.
Just use
After we
collection,
use
ma'am.
the hash map.
And we can say the data structure is there, right? Within that, we can hold the data. And one more is there, like who was telling
We can
local storage file.
store data as cloud.
Okay. But cloud is going to store somewhere, right?
Yes, ma'am. It is like in cloud we have a API to connect the front end and
But
back end.
I am talking about without API. Now the API is not mandatory, right?
If we don't have a API, so we use the hash map, local storage, this type of data.
Exactly. Yeah. So we can say like API is not mandatory thing. Like without API, we can't do with our project. It's not like a mandatory thing.
We can use a full database.
Yes. So data structure is there. We can use the file system within the local system. We can store the data. So API is not mandatory. First thing is very clear. API is not mandatory. But the point is, if API is not mandatory, then why we are going for it? Why it is so important this time? So what the main point? Once we are talking about API, that means what we are trying to do? We are trying to share the data. We are trying to establish a communication between two different technologies. Okay, if yes, please everyone, if any question is there, so please let me know. You can interrupt at the same point, okay? So this is what, if the API is not
Hi.
mandatory, yes, please.
Yes, ma'am. Bharti this side. Like I just want to like add something. Like can we have some little idea about some technical terms previous? Like either suggest some of the content that we should already prepared with, so that we can get knowledge about the technical terms that you are using, like API, hash map, array, database, local storage, repository. Like there are even including me, I can say there are some more people can be there who are not aware of these technical terms as well. So I my suggestion, or I it's my request, you can say it will be better if you can at least suggest us some of the content with what we should already be prepared, so that these technical terms can be understood throughout the session, because you have discussed all these terms and I'm not aware about these terms, and I'm not getting the point what you actually want to say. So it will be better if we have some suggestions to be learned before continuing with this.
Okay, I got your point. And thank you
Yes.
for this advice. Okay,
Yeah,
but
thank you.
let me know if I will be there. So from the next session, we will try to do what those who are not aware with the basic terms, whatever is there, we are going to use within a particular session. So we will try to cover them in one session, and that's terms only we are going to use in next one. Okay, so just don't worry about that.
Yeah,
Okay, so
thank you
from
so
that
much.
upcoming session, it will be there. Just don't worry. And one more
Yeah.
suggestion to all of you, and especially those who are not aware with the terms and you are coming from a different field. So just don't worry about the terms. Just forget about all the things, what API, what the local base storage and everything. Just try to do what? Just focus on the concept. I'm talking about the word concept. Don't worry about the terms.
Yeah,
technical
thank you,
term.
ma'am.
Just focus on the concept, what I'm trying to say. Okay. So let's
All right.
start with that. It's very simple example I'm going to use here, and please everyone feel free to interrupt whenever you are getting any query in your mind. Okay. So what is happening here? We are trying to understand what the REST API is doing and why it is important. Okay, so I'm going to use a very simple example, and I hope you all will be able to relate with that. Suppose we are going to generate one application. That application is doing what? That application is allowing you, okay, within our Google Play, if we have to reserve a ticket, okay, we have to book a ticket. It may be for bus, it may be for train, whatever flight. So we are doing what? Within our mobile, there is an application, and that application is allowing us to reserve a seat. Suppose we are going for Delhi to Mumbai and we have to book a train ticket. Okay, so what we will do, we will use one application, simple application. Okay, again, I'm repeating, just forget about the terms, just focus on that example. Any application we can use, like Make My Trip or any other. Okay, so within this application, what we will do, we will fill some form, some data details here, what they are going to use, whatever number of passengers are there and everything that we are doing, right? In same way, once we will ask for a route like Mumbai to Delhi, let me know for this particular date, is there any train available? And within that train, is there any seat availability? Yes or no? So that kind of things we are going to ask to that application. All are getting, right? That's what we are doing. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
If we have to book a ticket, we are going on a particular
Yes, ma'am.
application and we are asking this route is there, Delhi to Mumbai. Let me know for this particular date, for this particular route, is there any train available? And within the train, is there any seat available? That kind of details we are filling, and we are going to click on a button, right? And once we are going to click on a button, that particular page is doing what? Is going to list out a detail. What different number of trains are there, and within particular train, what the particular number of seat available for a different levels, everything, every detail we are getting. So we all are aware with this part. Now, just think about how it is happening behind the scene. That application, suppose we are using Make My Trip, MMT. So MMT is going to list out all the detail. Now, this question is for everyone. You all are aware, right? Ticket booking for the railway, Make My Trip is not the official authority to read the data. Once we are talking about that particular route detail, train detail, from where we are getting the data? Where the data we are getting from?
From IRC, from
IRCTC.
IRCTC official site.
Yes, because IRCTC is the official holder of all these details. IRCTC is responsible, you can say only IRCTC is authorized to use the data, to share the data and everything. No other application is authorized to access the data. Now the question is, if Make My Trip is not the authority website to hold the data, to read the data, so how the Make My Trip is able to know about the available trains or seats for the particular route on the particular day, right? The question is there in all mind, yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, but I hope you
Yes.
are getting.
Ma'am, just IRCT is tie up with Book My Show for ticket booking and all. So that's why we
Yes,
have
yes.
so some ticket booking system.
Okay, that's good try. Yes, others, and especially those who are not aware with the terms. Yes, Bharti, you are getting the points, right? Yes or no? Please mention.
Yes, yes, I'm getting it.
Are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm getting it.
Okay, that's good.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
everyone. Why I'm focusing, because now you mentioned like the terms. You forget about terms. Just come with the question. If
Yeah,
Make
yeah.
My Trip is not the authorized person to hold the data, to get the data, then how it is responsible for it? And how, once we are asking for the particular rate, how is going to list out the detail of the particular list? How it is possible? If it is not authorized, then how we are able to get the detail of the train? So the answer is, if the Make My Trip is not the authorized person, so of course it's not possible for Make My Trip to get the data. Now the question is, if make my trip is not responsible, not authorized, then who is there behind the scene to sharing the data with make my trip,
Ma'am,
and
through
make my
API
trip is
keys.
list out within this space. So the point is, make my trip is just a single application. IRCTC is the holder of the database. Is you can say the authorized person who is able to hold the data. The entire railway data is there within the IRCTC. So what the API is there, the REST API is going to do. Now make my trip is what the developer is working with make my trip. They are going to design, okay, we have to do what? Whenever user will ask for this particular route, we are going to collect the data and we will print it here. But wait, we are not authorized person to read the data, railway data. Then what we should do? So the make my trip is going to decide what is going to communicate with IRCTC. Okay, you are the authorized person to hold the data about the railway, the whole railway. So do one thing as a request. Make my trip is going to make a request to IRCTC. Whenever I will ask you for a particular route on a particular date for the availability of the train and the seat, just do one thing. Response me accordingly. Okay, again I'm repeating, make my trip is going to request to IRCTC. Whenever I will ask for a particular detail, just response it. This is API. API is what? It's a bridge between these two applications. One is Make My Trip, one is IRCTC. And API is a, you can say, intercommunication between these two, a bridge between these two. Okay. And the job is what? What the REST API is going to do. Make My Trip is an application, but it's not having the actual data. IRCTC is owner of the data. Make My Trip can't hold the data of the railway. IRCTC is having the data about the trade and seat. So Make My Trip is going to do what? Is going to design the whole application, but for the data, it depends on IRCTC. IRCTC is going to store the whole data within their own database. And whenever Make My Trip will pass a request to IRCTC, just do one thing. For Delhi to Mumbai, for this particular date, let me know what number of train and seat are available. And IRCTC is going to do what? Is going to pass a request, or you can say a query, database query to the database, and database is going to return the whole data set. Okay. And IRCTC is going to return the whole data as a response to Make My Trip. And Make My Trip is going to do what? Is going to decorate their page with the data, and that data is held by IRCTC database. So what is happening here? As an end user, whatever we will get here on a screen of Make My Trip application, that data is not coming from Make My Trip database. It's coming from IRCTC database. Okay, so now the main point is what? If Make My Trip is not having that particular data, IRCTC is having that data. So who is there behind the scene? Who is going to pass the request from Make My Trip to IRCTC? And who is going to return the response from IRCTC to Make My Trip? So that person who is working behind the scene for this responsibility, that is REST API. Okay. What is REST API? What is API? What's the full form of API? Anyone?
Application program
Appli-
interface.
Application programming interface.
Exactly. So that application programming interface. Two different applications. One is Make My Trip, one is IRCTC. We are going to make interface. REST is going to make one interface between these two programmatically. Okay. So this is what the API is going to do conceptually. Every time, for every application, if you are talking about API, what the API is going to do is going to request to the data owner, and the data owner is going to collect the data from the database and is going to return the response to the application. That is job of API. I hope it is clear for everyone. If any question, Ella, so come with that.
No, ma'am.
Nothing? No
Ma'am,
question?
why we have REST API, like specifically why it is REST API?
Yes, the rest is was there because what different API and different ways are there to do that. Okay, different ways are there to use use the request from a particular application to pass it to the server and again collect the response from the server and pass it to the client. Okay, so the REST is one way to do that. Okay, you can say one type of API is REST, representative state transfer. But the role is what, as I mentioned, today we are not focusing on the technical term. So REST is one type of way to implement the API. Okay.
Okay.
And here in Spring Boot, we are going to work with REST. That's why I use the word REST. Okay, so is it clear about the basic, very basic thing, why the API is there? Because we are developing one application, but we don't having the actual data. That actual data is owned by any other application. So we have to pass a request to that particular application to hold the data. To pass the data, and that application is going to return the data as a response. And the mediator, the person is API. This is how it's going to work. So API is not mandatory, but it is required. When we are not owning the data, we are not the person who having the actual data. That time, if you want to develop one application, we need the actual data. We will pass the request to the owner. Owner is going to return the data as a response, and this is how it is going to work every time. Okay. No matter it's about Make My Trip or any other application. If it is using API, that means it's going to pass a request. It will collect the data as a response. That's it. Okay, so this is about a very basic introduction of API, and thus it's very interactive. You all are interactive within the session, so that's very good thing. Yes, please.
We can say that front end and back end are connected by API.
Sorry, your voice is not clear for me. Please repeat.
You can say like now API is connecting the front end and back end, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ma'am.
Yes, please.
Ma'am, I have a database. It is in another system. Like I don't have in the local system, and we can access through that database.
Yes, we can access it.
For example, with you have one database. I need that data, and by using API, I can access that data.
If you're talking about API, so obviously you have to send the request, and if the server is okay with that, then only you will get the response, the data as a response. If you're talking about two different systems, but you are the only owner of two different systems, so that time you can do without API also. Or you can say because you are owner, so now that time you don't require the permission. You just have to use the address. What the main thing is address. Actually, these things we will cover in detail once we will go in detail for this particular. Okay, so yes, the answer is yes, you can do. Of course, that's what API is going to do. But what I'm trying to say, if we are talking about this example, so here we need to pass a request because that application is another application, is the owner is a different person. But if you're talking about we are having two different applications, two different systems, and within that we are the only owner for it. So you can say conceptually it's not a request. You are able to just use the address and collect the data. But again, you can say in other terms, it's suppose API also. API is interface. Interface means two different applications. They want to communicate, they need the interface. That's it. No matter it's about your own or any different person. Okay.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes, please.
How does Make My Trip ensure data consistency and accuracy in real-time bookings?
For the accuracy, it depends because as I mentioned, like today we are not going to cover all these things in detail, but yes, of course, things will be there and we will continue with that. So we will cover all these things in detail also about the accuracy and everything.
I'm talking of if it's replying on the third-party APIs that doesn't control.
What kind of control? On the data what they are collecting? And
yes, ma'am.
Or what?
On the data we are selecting.
So you are talking about to check the accuracy before using the data within our database, right?
Yeah, right.
So that's what I mentioned. These all things will be part of session. If we will continue with the next. Don't worry, this will be part of that once we will start because today only we will go in this much detail. So others are just not aware with that. So don't worry, it will be part of that
Oh,
about accuracy
oh, okay, ma'am.
and security also. Yes, others, any other question?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Hello.
Yes, please.
Ma'am, can we say like REST API is like a server means?
Forget about the word server and client. Just go with the two different applications. Two different application. Suppose you are developing one application with Python and I'm developing one application with Java. Okay, but what I'm doing, the data is there within my application database. Okay, and you need that data for your application database. So you have to send a request and I have to send a response, the data. Forget about the server and client if you are not clear in that part. Just use two different application, client A and the client B, and they want to communicate. Communicate in what terms? In data. Okay.
Okay.
Right? Server, what we are using, the owner of the data, that is server, backend. Okay. And front end is not only front end. Here we are using the word client who is going to send the request. It's not all time front end only. Some other application is also possible to accept the request from other application. It's not all time front end only. Okay.
You meant the back end of another application can ask a request for the
Yeah,
data.
the technology is not a barrier. As I mentioned, if a client, one application of Python and one is Java. So Python application can send the request, API request to Java application, and Java application will send the response. The question may be in your mind like two different technology, how they can communicate. So the point is what data, what the request we are sending to server, Java, Python to Java, and what the Java is going to return to Python. That general form we are using is JSON or XML format. Okay, that is readable by Python also, and that is readable by Java also. You can say the intermediator will be there. The general form we will use JSON. So JSON is readable by Python also. JSON is readable by Java also. So what the request data Python is going to pass as a request, Java is able to read the request. Okay, you want to pass the detail of train for this particular route. These all things Java will be able to read because Python is going to send it within a general language, that is JSON or XML. And whatever Java is going to return as a response, that will not be Java object, it will be JSON. So Python is able to understand that. Okay, that's why the general language we are using is either JSON or XML. Okay, so two different technologies are able to communicate with the help of API.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, fine, everyone. So that is enough for today's session. Thank you for this interactive session. Thank you, everyone.
Ma'am,
Yes, please.
ma'am, please once discuss about the project and all.
Yes, we will discuss that all things, whatever project you have to work and how the flow. Today, we just try to cover the very basic things related to project. So don't worry about that. Project description will be there. Okay.
Ma'am, then some request has to become for accessing the hours, ma'am.
Your
Hello?
voice is breaking, I think.
I am audible to you, ma'am.
Yes, audible, but sometimes it's breaking. Yes, please.
Ma'am, you sent some that in WhatsApp group that follow request means what's that? What way are you gonna access, ma'am? I mean
about learning portal, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, for that you will get information. Okay, in next session.
Ma'am, we fill the Google form, ma'am. We need to send message again to get the email.
Yes, as I mentioned, like for
we are not getting
wait.
verified email.
Question regarding to these detail and information. For that you will get the detail in next session. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.